Hello, it's me here once again with another one of my Pink Floyd Discography reviews series, and I'm going to continue it with album number 11. As you can read down below is The Wall. But before we get into it, be sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe, click the little bell down below so you don't miss any of my videos, and let's get into The Wall. The Wall is an album that I think is very mixed among people. I think it's an album you either really like it or you don't. But I think there can be also that middle ground of it being meh. Very much so. Now, after the recording of Animals in '77, Pink Floyd went and toured that album extensively through, I believe, '77, '78. And by the end of that tour, it was really evident Roger Waters' alienation towards the audience, culminating in spitting in a fan, I believe, in Hamilton. It really showed there was cracks in Pink Floyd around this time. And so David Gilmour goes off, does a solo work, in my opinion, his best solo album he ever did, which was his self-titled David Gilmour. And Rick Wright went off and did Wet Dreams. Now, I always thought this album was more so of a Roger Waters solo project. I think that's always what it was intended as. But due to financial situations, I've seen in documentaries they've said like Pink Floyd was broke, the band broke up, that's why everything. And it really is something interesting to look at if you look at it soulfully as an album that you need to make money. And why did Pink Floyd... And I always assume that's why this was a double album and not necessarily just one record. I think that the double album, you could charge more for it, so Pink Floyd still had a name, had a reputation, so you could sell a shitload of these. But anyway, let's get into the album. But actually, before that, the two ideas proposed was either Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, which Roger Waters would do later, and The Wall. And The Wall just happened to do this. Rick Wright has always come out and said he wished he had material for this album. It's the last to feature Rick Wright, so let's delve into it. It starts off with In the Flesh with a question mark. And I've always liked this song. It's a heavy, hard opener for this. Other than maybe the Niles song, I think at this point this would probably be one of Pink Floyd's most heaviest songs they ever did. Which is saying something, because like Pink Floyd's more known for their melodic, bluesy sounding keyboards. That they're doing more hard rock here. And it seemed to work well. I always thought the melding of the bass, the guitar, and the drums always worked well with the song. And it's short, so it's a good opener. On to song number 2, The Thin Ice. Now, this is a song that I would say if it came out later of some of the other songs being left off the album, this is kind of where I would have put When the Tigers Broke Free. I would have put it here instead of this song. It's not that it's a bad song or a badly sung song. I know it has David Gilmour's vocals, and that's always great to hear on an album, but I just think this song really could have benefited a lot if it would have been a different song. And I think it would have fit the album more in that. And it would have fit the next song, what we're going to talk about, Another Brick in the Wall Part 1. I'll throw in Happiest Days of Our Lives and Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 into this whole collection of stuff here. Another Brick in the Wall Part 1 has always had a great bass line, has always had a great guitar sound to it. The problem that you run into with some of these songs is they kind of drag at times. I like this stuff. I like especially the first bit, Another Brick in the Wall Part 1, how it's talking about his dad and Daddy, why don't you come home for me or something. It's a good song. It really is. It's just fitting more of a theme, and it's kind of a filler into Happiest Days of Our Lives, which is a famous, when we grew up and went to school, there were certain teachers who would hurt the children any way they could. And going off into that whole thing and talking about that kind of whole thing and leading into Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, which with the line, we don't need no education, we don't need no thought control. This album actually speaks a lot more to today than maybe it did back in 1979. But the whole idea of education, conformity, thought control through the school system is quite evident, and it's actually pretty good. The song, the Gilmour solo on Another Brick and Wall Part 2 to end that song, that is just fantastic. That's David Gilmour. Very disco sounding in a way, but David Gilmour on this album was on. And this is one of those songs where I always felt it's a really damn good song. Now on to song number 6, Mother, which is another Pink Floyd classic. I love this song. And it's another one that could work very well today. And it's just great to listen to. Mother, do you think they'll drop the bomb? And it really speaks a lot about mothers and how mothers like to control stuff and everything. And how you kind of feel safe with your mother. But yeah, it goes into that. Once again, another good Gilmour guitar solo. Not too long like there has been on other albums of Pink Floyd's, but it's good. It's decent. It works. The whole song really works well. The first side of the first album is really damn good. I don't really have many complaints other than that one song maybe being a little bit nitpicked. But let's go on to song number 7 really off this. Empty Spaces, or not Empty Spaces, Goodbye Blue Sky. This is a great song. Very acoustically, sung very well by David Gilmour. Did you like the salt and bomb? It's great acoustical ballady type stuff, more prog you'd hear from Pink Floyd, but it doesn't go on too long. Like, that's something I'll say about these songs. None of them really are over the 6-minute mark. So it makes for pleasant experience here. Now on to the next song, Empty Spaces. Now, the thing about Empty Spaces, I would say, is I prefer the actual movie version of this, where you have empty spaces with our backs to the wall. And what's the other one? With our backs to the wall and then go into Young Lust. I always thought that was a better idea. I think there could have been some trimming around here, but let's get into that. Empty Spaces. Really symphonic opening. It has that Pink Floyd sound to it, something you'd hear from Pink Floyd. And it really feels a lot more like Rick Wright contribution and David Gilmour than maybe just a Roger Waters, but it works very well. Now on to Young Lust, which after, like I said there, I would have gone into With Our Backs to the Wall after that and then busted into Young Lust, but busting into Young Lust works quite a bit as well. Young Lust, to me, I think off the first half of the album, Young Lust is my favorite song off this entire half of the album. I love that. Ooh, I need a dirty woman. Ooh, I need a dirty guy. And it's written by Gilmour and Waters, which I believe up to this point was the first song that David Gilmour got credit for. And it was actually, I think, one of the leftovers from his solo album. He wanted, I believe, add this, Comfortably Numb, or maybe even Run Like Hell to the album. There were 3 songs left off that he brought over to the album. And this is the one song that I think works really well. It really fits a theme, rock and roll lifestyle. And it's good. It's great. Like, the first half of this album up to this point is just spot on, great. Hit after hit, good song after good song. What else can you say about it? Now on to song number, really I'd say, let's see, 4, that'd be song number 10. Now you get into One of My Turns, which is a great song. I always like when Pink Floyd does this. It kind of has this little intro to it with the girl going back to the hotel room, going in, meeting Pink, and then you get a great song with a great driving. Starts off very slow, melodic. It's paced very well. And you get that great, and I feel one of my turns coming on. And it goes into this whole thing, and that picks up, and it's like, into the bedroom, and the suitcase on the left, you'll find my favorite axe. And then it leads into some great piano keyboard work, and also into some just spot on lyrical content from Roger Waters, some great drumming. I know Nick Mason, by this point, everyone just calls him a metronome, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. He's spot on his drumming. Now on to song number 11, and this is really, to me, where the album starts to kind of sag. And this would be actually the part where, instead of putting Don't Leave Me Now here, which is a pretty good song, like, it's not terrible, it's filler. That's really all it is. This might have been the part to the album where I would have stepped back, looked at it, and figured, what do we have here? I would have probably, if it was up to me, this is where I would have put Nobody's Home on it. And that's just my opinion, because I think Nobody's Home is a good song. This is where I would have put it on the album. Now on to Another Brick in the Wall, part 3, which is alright. It is what it is. I don't need no arms around me. I don't need no drugs to calm me. Just that Roger Waters singing. It's upbeat, very tempo, very short. And the last song off of this side of the album is Goodbye Cruel World. I think that it's a short song. It's good. It ends that half of the album. But, oh man, this is a huge but. I would have kind of left those songs off there, if at all possible. I'm trying to figure out what the heck I would have put there. But looking back at it, let's see, what could we have put there instead? It's kind of a hard thing because those songs are so short. But that might be actually where I put Is There Anybody Out There? That would have been where I would have put Is There Anybody Out There? This album really does lack. It's around this part where it really gets for a lot of people. And anyway, that's side, pretty much disc 1. On to the next one. It starts off with Hey You. And Hey You is a great song. It's fantastic. I think it actually could have even went. Actually, you know what? Where I put Nobody's Home could have even been where Hey You goes. It's that good of a song. It could have fit the whole melody of the album. It's around the same song length. So it would have worked there. And I've always loved Hey You. It had some great Gilmour vocals. Halfway through, Waters then takes over. It's a great Waters Gilmour song. And it's just one of those that every Pink Floyd fan knows has an epic Gilmour guitar solo. Which this album actually, when it does have a Gilmour guitar solo, it's usually very damn good. Now on to the next song, Is There Anybody Out There? A soft acoustical ballad. It's filler to the nth degree. Just pretty much goes over, is there anybody out there? And yeah, that's pretty much that song. Nobody's Home is a song I really enjoy off this album. It's the soul song, I feel, from the album. If anyone who's watched my Uriah Heep discography review series where I talk about soul songs off an album, that's one. Nobody's Home's great. Just a straightforward piano and just singing. And it works really well. Like, there's not really much guitar work on it. There's not really sounds like there's any drumming on it. Just keyboard and singing. Or piano and singing. That's pretty much it. And after that is, to me, where the album really does suffer a lot. Next song, Vera, filler. Next song, Bring the Boys Back Home, filler. You take out that last little bit of Bring the Boys Back Home with the time to go. Yeah, that to Comfortably Numb, which is standalone, one of the standouts from this album. Best song off the album by far. And if there's a way to say Gilmour's and Waters ended their partnership, this is the perfect song to end that partnership, end that Pink Floyd. Man, what can I say about Comfortably Numb that hasn't been said? Two epic guitar solos by Gilmour, the singing by Waters and Gilmour. Gilmour's vocally on this album was on. Waters was on this song, the song that pretty much broke up the band. And Gilmour and Waters really, and the Wright keyboard stuff on this album, I've seen him sing it live. It's amazing listening to this song. It's one of those songs that you just shut up and listen because it's just fantastic. Now we have to come from the high of Comfortably Numb onto The Show Must Go On. And sadly it does. Because this last half of side 2 is also The Show Must Go On. Let's just call it what it is, filler. Then you go into In the Flesh, which it's a redo of the earlier song. To me, I like it. It's not bad, but it's probably out of here. I want to say From Here and Run Like Hell are the two best songs off of this. Then you get into Run Like Hell, which another Gilmour song that was supposed to be on a solo album. Great song, just works fantastically. The lyrical content from Roger Waters. Well, you make your face up in your favorite disguise with your button-down lips and roller-blind eyes. And just that whole vocal thing going back and forth, him and Gilmour, works perfectly. It's actually one of the better done things on the album. It's just sad it had to be saddled on this part of the album. And it's really unfortunate. Yeah, go into that. You have some great David Gilmour work on it. And now we get into Waiting for the Worms. Good vocals. I'll give it that. This album had great vocals on it. But this is the part where I was kind of like the album. Enough. I know it really touched on a lot of themes of racism and stuff around here and bringing Make Britain Great Again type stuff. But even around this part of the album really is hard to get through. Because the high of Comfortably Numb was so high, the high of Run Like Hell is so good, that this part of the album really feels eh. Then you get Stop, which is filler again. Then you get The Trial, which is a song written by Waters and Ezrin. I've never cared for it very much, but maybe that's just me. And then ends with Outside the Wall, which is filler to the nth degree. Which, now let's get into this album. I have to talk a lot about this. And to me, I know a lot of Pink Floyd fans love this album. I don't. I like half of this album. To me, you could have taken some of those songs out of the first half of the album, kicked them out maybe entirely, put the 3 standalone songs off side 2 and just made one album. That's always been my thought about this album, is it's been one of those weird kind of things to think about, that as much as I love Pink Floyd and as huge a Pink Floyd fan as I am, this album really didn't do it for me. It really didn't. Especially when you're coming off some musical masterpieces. I've always felt this album is massively overrated. To be on Hell, it's massively overrated. The reason I'm not a huge fan of double albums is because of the amount of filler and crap filler that's on this record. Oh man. If I had to pick, I'll go through each album and I'll pick the best and worst songs. Best song for me off of, I guess, disc 1 is Young Lust. I'll even throw another Brick in the Wall part 2 in there. Worst song off of the opening disc, I'd say, is Don't Leave Me Now. That's the one I actually end up probably skipping the most. And hidden gem off this, I would actually go One of My Turns is probably a hidden gem off of it. Just a great song. Goodbye Blue Sky is another one. off of there. Off of disc number 2, best song, Comfortably Numb, hands down. Worst song off of it, Most of the Damn side 2. Hidden gem off of it, I'd say Run Like Hell. I'd even throw in Nobody's Home. I'd even throw Hey You in there as another great song off that. I think there's only about 3 or 4 songs off that whole side that I'd actually keep. The rest of it I would have scrapped. Maybe even come up with something else. But anyway, looking at it, it's interesting just looking back at this album and however many, just about 40 years later, this is still, to me, a very divisive album. It's not my favorite Pink Floyd album. It's not the worst Pink Floyd album I've ever heard. But I think listening back to it, it's probably the most overrated Pink Floyd album I've ever heard. But that's just my opinion. Once again, be sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe. If I had to give it a rating out of 5, I'd give this album 3 out of 5. 3.5 out of 5. I'm being generous. I'll give them 3.5 out of 5. First half of this album is good. Disc 2 is what brings this album down. If I just rated it off of Disc 1, I would have said this is a 4.5 star album. Disc 2 is just so bad. And I don't think it's Gilmour's fault. I don't think it's Waters' fault. I just think when a band does an album for money, and it's obvious they're doing it for money, this kind of stuff happens. But anyway, that's my thoughts and opinions. Peace.